When Shedeur Sanders was bumped down in practice rotations in favor of Bailey Zapp, most assumed Stefanski had picked a path, and it didn't include Sanders. But now, seemingly out of nowhere, that decision has reversed. In a season marked by turmoil and leadership drift, the Browns are handing the reins to the rookie once shelved. This isn't a smooth transition. It's a reversal born out of pressure, internally from a divided locker room and externally from a fan base demanding answers.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And it's happening just as rumors swirl that a full-scale shakeup is in motion behind the scenes. The choice to start Sanders highlights how Cleveland's issues extend beyond the quarterback position. Offensive schemes haven't adapted, chemistry is broken, and ownership is clearly losing patience. Sanders might bring new energy, but the weight of the organization's dysfunction rests on his shoulders now. The team's leadership crisis isn't just visible, it's accelerating. And unless Stefanski pulls off an unlikely turnaround, the Sanders era may begin just as the Stefanski era ends. Kevin Stefanski has finally made the call that many thought would never come, or at least not this fast. Shedeur Sanders is officially the Browns' starting quarterback for Week 4, and with that announcement, Cleveland has moved from disorganized to desperate. This isn't just a change in depth chart. This is a public acknowledgement that nothing is working, and Stefanski is out of answers. It's a franchise that's been stumbling through a broken offensive philosophy, caught in a losing spiral, now handing the ball to a rookie in the hopes he can pull them out of it. That's not a turning point. That's a crisis play. The Browns haven't won a game in 8 straight tries. The offense has been unbalanced, underwhelming, and completely uninspired. Analysts haven't held back. They're calling the scheme outdated, stale, and lacking in creativity. And worse than that, they're calling out Stefanski's quarterback management as chaotic and reactive. Sanders wasn't part of a plan. He was an afterthought. A guy taken out of scout team reps in favor of Bailey Zapp. Let that sink in. Zapp was taking reps instead of the most promising young quarterback on the roster. And now, with the pressure at a boiling point, the team's unraveling and ownership reportedly weighing coaching changes, suddenly Sanders is the guy. It's not hard to connect the dots. Stefanski is coaching for his job, and Shedeur Sanders is being dropped into the center of that firestorm. This isn't about development anymore. This is about survival. But the problem isn't just the decision, it's everything around it. The offense has shown no signs of being modern, adaptable, or even functional. It's built on repetition. It's slow. It's conservative. It's the kind of system that needs everything to go right to have even a chance at success. And when your team is already collapsing under the weight of 8 straight losses and locker room fractures, that system becomes a death sentence. And now it belongs to Sanders. This is a quarterback who hasn't been properly integrated into the offense, who hasn't gotten the consistent reps, who wasn't given the time to build chemistry with his receivers, and now he's being tasked with turning the season around. That's not a setup for success. That's a scapegoat in waiting. If Sanders fails under this system, the critics won't say the scheme was flawed. They'll say he wasn't ready. They'll say he's too raw, too young, too inexperienced. And that's the real risk, because it lets the people who actually failed off the hook. And then there's the locker room. Reports suggest that trust is already eroding. Players feel undermined. The preseason was a disaster, and it showed. The plan was murky. The chemistry wasn't there. And now the results are exactly what you'd expect from a team that had no vision in August and even less leadership in September. Meanwhile, pressure from the front office is mounting. Ownership is reportedly exploring options, including the possibility of a coaching overhaul before mid-season. That's how bad things have gotten. Stefanski's job isn't just at risk in theory, it's actively in jeopardy if the next few weeks don't show a drastic turnaround. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, Sanders has remained calm. He said the right things. He stayed patient. But his body language, his presence in practice, has told a different story. He's been ready. And maybe more importantly, he's been waiting for a moment the team should have been preparing him for all along. And now, instead of walking into a well-designed opportunity, he's walking into a crisis. What happens next could define not just this season but the next 5 years of this franchise. If Sanders succeeds, Stefanski might buy time. But the offense has to evolve. The system has to be built for him, not around him. There's no margin left for error. The same stale game plan that's been failing since week 1 won't work now just because the guy under center has more upside. But if he fails? If the Browns continue losing? Then not only is Stefanski gone, but the entire identity of the team comes into question. And don't forget, other teams are watching. The Bengals are already rumored to be monitoring Sanders' situation, especially with Joe Burrow out. If Cleveland doesn't handle this correctly, there's a very real chance they don't just lose games, they lose their most promising player. That's how dysfunction spreads. It starts with mismanagement, grows with denial, and ends with talent walking out the door. And right now, the Browns are hitting all three stages at once. And the fans? They're over it. Social media is drowning in frustration. The criticism isn't just loud, it's personal. Browns fans aren't just disappointed, they feel betrayed. They've watched their team fail to build something sustainable time after time, and this year was supposed to be different. But instead, they're being forced to watch a rookie quarterback be used as a lifeline for a sinking coach. This is bigger than a lineup change. It's a moment of reckoning for the entire franchise. Will Stefanski adapt? Will the offense finally modernize? Will the locker room respond to Sanders' leadership? Or will the Browns do what they've done so many times before? Waste another young quarterback, lose another season, and start the cycle all over again? If the next two games go south, it's not just Stefanski who'll be gone. The Browns could be staring down a full-blown reset. Coaching staff, front office, system, everything. And if that happens, who's to say Sanders doesn't become the next name added to the list of talent the Browns never figured out how to keep? The pressure is suffocating. The expectations are unrealistic. And yet, somehow this entire organization is hoping Shedeur Sanders can fix a mess they created and refused to clean up until it was too late. What do you think? Was Stefanski's decision to start Sanders too late, too forced, or too little to save his job? Can Shedeur survive in a system that's already failed so many before him? Drop your thoughts below. Hit like if you're watching this train wreck and wondering how it got this bad. And if you want the full breakdown on every disaster, quarterback shuffle, and franchise implosion, you know what to do. Subscribe and stay with us, because this Cleveland story is just getting started. There's a moment in every NFL season where the curtain gets pulled back. The PR spin stops working, the excuses wear thin, and what's really going on becomes undeniable. For the Cleveland Browns, that moment is now, and the face of it is Shedeur Sanders. Kevin Stefanski naming Sanders as the Week 4 starter is being marketed like a spark, a fresh start, a bold move. But everyone watching this team closely knows it's not any of those things. It's a concession, a pivot made under pressure. A head coach trying to keep the Wolves at bay while the structure around him buckles. And at the heart of it, a rookie quarterback being asked to fix a franchise already unraveling at the seams. The facts are brutal. The Browns are on an 8-game losing streak. The offense isn't just underperforming, it's lifeless. Morale has cratered, and Stefanski's leadership has gone from respected to questioned to openly criticized. Everything from his offensive philosophy to his quarterback development has been put under the microscope and found wanting. And now, finally, he turns to Sanders. But why now? Why not weeks ago, when the offensive struggles were already obvious and the quarterback carousel was clearly leading nowhere? Why was Shedeur benched from scout team duties just 2 weeks ago, replaced by Bailey Zapp, a move that sent shockwaves through media circles and infuriated fans? That's what makes this decision feel less like a turning point and more like a last resort. There's no evidence this was the plan. In fact, everything points to the opposite. Sanders has been sidelined, underutilized, and essentially benched in favor of less promising options. And now, when the pressure is boiling, the team is collapsing, and the locker room is visibly fraying, now Stefanski pulls the trigger? It doesn't look like a strategy. It looks like survival. And to be clear, Sanders is walking into a disaster zone. The offense is outdated and creatively bankrupt. Analysts across the league have criticized it for lacking flexibility, innovation, and any sense of modern NFL dynamics. There's no tempo, no deception, no movement. Just rigid, recycled schemes that have produced nothing but losses. The passing attack is flat. The run game is inconsistent. The play calling? Predictable. That's what Shedeur is inheriting. He's not being handed the keys to a finely tuned machine. He's being asked to pilot something that's already on fire. And that's the part no one in Cleveland seems to be acknowledging. This isn't just about whether Sanders is ready. It's about whether the people around him are capable of setting him up for success. And right now, the answer doesn't look promising. Let's talk about development, because that's where this entire situation falls apart. Sanders hasn't been groomed for this moment. He's been shuffled in and out of relevance, denied reps, and left out of the early season game plan. Any confidence he has stepping onto the field is his own, not something built through smart, consistent coaching. And yet, the weight of the season is now on his shoulders. He's supposed to win games, reignite the offense, restore locker room morale. And quietly, he's expected to do all of that while the specter of a coaching change looms larger by the week. Because make no mistake, Stefanski's job is on the line. Insiders have already made that clear. If Cleveland doesn't pull itself out of this tailspin fast, ownership is prepared to clean house. This move isn't just about Shedeur, it's about saving a coach who's running out of chances. And that makes what happens next even more dangerous. Because if the offense doesn't improve, and fast, there's a real risk that Sanders becomes the fall guy. That the same people who failed to develop him will use his struggles as proof that he wasn't ready. That they'll shift blame instead of fixing the broken system they've built. That's how promising careers get derailed before they even begin. And other teams are watching. With Joe Burrow injured, the Bengals are reportedly eyeing quarterback options. Sanders has been flagged as one to watch. It's not a rumor pulled from thin air, it's a league-wide acknowledgement that his potential remains intact, even if Cleveland isn't maximizing it. And if this current situation spirals further? If Sanders doesn't see a clear path forward in Cleveland? The thought of him seeking a more stable, forward-thinking franchise isn't far-fetched at all. That's the bigger risk here, losing the one piece that might actually be worth building around. Because if Cleveland fumbles this opportunity, and history suggests they might, Sanders isn't the one who'll be left searching for answers. The Browns will. But it doesn't have to go that way. There's still a sliver of hope. A narrow window where things could change, if the Browns are willing to admit what's not working. That means more than just giving Sanders the start. It means changing the offense. Abandoning the rigid, outdated schemes and building something around his strengths. Letting him move. Letting him create. Giving him receivers on the same page and a line that isn't forcing him into chaos 3 seconds after the snap. It means Stefanski has to let go of the system he's clung to for too long and acknowledge that something new needs to take shape. Something bold. Something built not for his resume, but for the quarterback he just handed the season to. Because Shedeur Sanders might not be ready to carry a franchise. But he is ready to lead, if someone's willing to meet him halfway. This isn't about talent. He has that. This is about trust, vision, adaptability. It's about whether the Browns can stop the bleeding long enough to let something new grow, or if they're going to let another young quarterback get swallowed by the dysfunction. The next few weeks are going to tell us everything we need to know. If Sanders shows flashes and the system adapts, maybe there's still a way forward. Maybe Stefanski buys himself some time. Maybe the locker room starts to believe again. But if things stay the same, if the play calling remains safe, the offense stays flat, and the losses keep piling up, this story ends the way all the worst Browns stories do. With more wasted potential, more finger-pointing, and another blown opportunity under center. This moment was avoidable. The warning signs were there. But the Browns waited too long to act, and now everything is riding on a rookie quarterback who wasn't even part of the game plan 2 weeks ago. The pressure inside the Cleveland Browns organization isn't just rising, it's erupting. And naming Shedeur Sanders the Week 4 starter? That wasn't a carefully planned move. That was a flare shot into the sky from a ship taking on water. Let's be clear, this wasn't about player readiness. It wasn't about long-term strategy or a breakthrough in quarterback development. This was about optics, damage control. Trying to hold back a complete organizational meltdown while still pretending the ship can be steered. And the most damning part? Everyone sees it. Start with the context. 8 straight losses. That's not just a slump, that's a collapse. And in the middle of it, the offense has been so unwatchable, you could swear it was designed by committee, except that committee only had one outdated playbook and a fear of creativity. No spark. No rhythm. No identity. Just confusion and stagnation. The critiques from analysts haven't exactly been subtle. They've called the Browns' scheme stale, rigid, devoid of modern adjustments. There's no versatility. No misdirection. The playbook looks like it was printed from a 2017 backup drive. And in today's NFL? That gets you burned. Repeatedly. But it's not just the scheme. It's the quarterback carousel. The decisions made week to week. Who's getting reps, who's sitting, who's suddenly elevated without explanation. It all reeks of panic. And Shedeur Sanders has been caught in the middle of it. Remember, not long ago he wasn't even taking scout team snaps. Stefanski had Sanders riding the bench while Bailey Zapp, yes Bailey Zapp, was given priority. That decision alone raised eyebrows across the league. And now, with the pressure cooker ready to explode, Sanders is being named the starter? This wasn't a calculated rise. It's a last-ditch Hail Mary. which makes it all the more frustrating because Sanders does have potential. He's not just another rookie being thrown into the fire. He's poised, composed, and physically gifted. He can throw, he can move, he can lead. But here's the issue. That potential doesn't matter if the organization can't protect it. And right now, nothing about the Browns screams development environment. The locker room is fractured. There are whispers of dysfunction, frustration leaking from the front office, and reports that ownership is already preparing for major changes. When people inside the building are questioning leadership, on and off the field, you know the cracks are deep. And yet, they've chosen this moment to put everything on a quarterback who hasn't even had a chance to grow within the system. It's not just unfair. It's reckless. If the coaching staff had a real plan, Sanders would have been integrated slowly. He would have taken second-team reps consistently, gotten time in lower-pressure situations, and been allowed to build chemistry with the offense. Instead, he was sidelined. Not given a developmental arc. Not given the reps. And now he's expected to walk in and turn the whole season around? That's not how good franchises operate. That's how desperation works. And let's not pretend the noise outside is quiet. Fans have lost faith. Social media is an active war zone. And insiders are pointing to one conclusion. If things don't change immediately, Stefanski is out. It's not speculation, it's expectation. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth. This move may not even be about Shedeur at all. It's about Kevin Stefanski. It's about a head coach trying to buy more time by showcasing something, anything, that looks like a shift in momentum. Because if Sanders wins, Stefanski gets credit for making the bold call. But if Sanders struggles, the blame shifts from system to player, from coaching to readiness, from scheme to experience. It becomes an easy narrative. He wasn't ready. When in reality, it's not that Sanders wasn't ready. It's that the Browns never prepared him. And while that misdirection might work in press conferences, it won't work in the locker room. The players see what's going on. And when teammates feel like decisions are being made based on politics, not performance, morale takes a hit that can't be recovered in one game. What's worse, the rest of the league is watching too. The Bengals are reportedly eyeing Shedeur Sanders as a potential trade target, especially with Joe Burrow's injury situation opening questions about the long-term quarterback outlook in Cincinnati. That's not random gossip. That's a direct reflection of how talented people around the league believe Sanders is, and how poorly they think Cleveland is handling him. If the Browns lose him, it's not just another roster misfire. It's a foundational failure. It's letting a franchise-caliber quarterback walk because the internal chaos was louder than the development plan. That's the price of dysfunction. Not just losses, but lost talent. And let's talk big picture for a moment. Because this isn't just about Stefanski. It's about the entire identity of this team. Cleveland has been through rebuild after rebuild. They've cycled through coaches, quarterbacks, and GMs like they're changing light bulbs. And yet here they are again. No clear offensive direction, no cohesive leadership, and now betting it all on a rookie quarterback with no system built around him. At some point, someone has to stop the pattern. Someone has to say, we're not doing this again. We're not wasting another quarterback. We're not hitting the reset button for the third time in 5 years. But who's going to say that when the people running the show can't even agree on a plan for the next 3 weeks? This is the crossroads. Stefanski has made his move. Now he has to prove that it wasn't just a gimmick. The offense has to evolve. The team has to rally. And Sanders has to not only survive, but shine. Because if not, it all comes crumbling down. Coaching staff, front office, roster structure, everything. And once that happens, don't expect Shedeur Sanders to stick around for the rebuild. The league has already marked him as a future star. If Cleveland doesn't act like they believe that too, someone else will. So what's next? That depends entirely on how this team responds. Not just in week 4 but in the weeks after. Does Stefanski adapt? Does the offense modernize? Do the players rally behind Sanders and finally find rhythm? Or does the Browns organization do what it's become infamous for, implode from within? At this point, calling it a comeback story feels generous. What Cleveland is dealing with looks a lot more like the opening chapters of yet another postmortem. And if Kevin Stefanski can't shift the energy, change the game plan, and pull this team out of its death spiral, that's exactly what it'll be. There's no more runway. No more benefit of the doubt. The excuses? Tired. The losses? Piling up. And now, with Sanders under center, there's no more buffer. Every snap is a referendum. On coaching. On leadership. On the entire offensive structure that's been crumbling in plain sight. The locker room knows what's at stake. These aren't rookies confused about the stakes. They're veterans, frustrated, demoralized, and starting to mentally check out. Players talk. And when they sense the front office is already exploring big changes, the buy-in disappears fast. Coaches become placeholders. Playbooks become suggestions. And effort drops before anyone even realizes what's happening. That's why Stefanski's decision to start Sanders doesn't just need to be bold, it needs to be right. The game plan has to reflect Sanders' skill set. The team has to rally behind him. If they just toss him into the same tired scheme that hasn't worked all season, it won't be a debut, it'll be a disaster. And the worst part? Everyone watching knows this didn't have to happen. The writing's been on the wall for weeks. The offense has been a mess since the start. There were opportunities to ease Sanders in, build a plan around him, and transition with care. But instead it was quarterback roulette. It was benchings, sudden depth chart reshuffles, and media confusion. There was no clear direction, just damage control. That's not how you run a franchise. The only reason Sanders is the starter now is because the team is already in free fall. This isn't grooming a rookie. This is tossing him the keys as the car's veering off a cliff. And let's be real, if this backfires, the consequences won't be subtle. Stefanski's job is already hanging by a thread. Ownership is circling. The media pressure is suffocating. And the fans? They've seen this movie before. They know exactly how it ends. So here we are. A rookie quarterback stepping into chaos. A head coach trying to rewrite the narrative in real time. And a franchise that feels like it's one bad game away from imploding. What happens next is anyone's guess. But if the Browns are serious about turning this around, it starts with protecting Sanders, not just physically but strategically. Give him support. Give him a scheme. Give him a real chance. Because if not, this won't just be Stefanski's last stand. It could be another wasted chapter in the endless saga of Cleveland mismanaging its future. Let us know, was this the right move or just another panic play? Comment below, hit like if you've had it with the dysfunction, and subscribe if you're strapped in for every NFL meltdown this season. Because in Cleveland, the drama never ends.